Question: is it wise to give somebody money, to give somebody love, to give somebody the perfect physical physique without them being able to actually manage it? Today, we're going to talk about the management of abundance and recognizing that it is through management that you actually manifest. Why? Well, most times people think, well, I desire this, right? This is something that's meant for me, that I have a right to create this, to attract this in my life. And that is true. But then they're missing something. What you're missing is the understanding that simply materializing it, manifesting it, is a small part of how manifestation actually happens, right? The materialization of it depends on your ability to manage that which you wish to materialize. You see, having it means managing it, right? And we talk about the feeling of having it all the time in manifestation, in spirituality. So if you're visualizing with everything that you got, but you don't manage, then essentially you default back to lack. You default back to your previous state, your previous reality. So you have to understand that the key to manifestation is aligning your frequency with that which you desire. You do that by way of this amazing word called management. Okay. Manifestation, the beliefs alone without structure, right? They can essentially create worse situations for you. So we have a lot of people, and you may experience them, where people are focused on the manifestation alone. Okay. And they make it happen, right? So they materialize something. It happens. Boom. Okay. But then if they're not in a space where they are training themselves to manage it, then what happens? This essentially will fade away. It will go away. Okay. We all know about the stories when people play and win the lotto, they lose it and they go broke and they go more into debt than they were when they first won the lotto. Why? Because they haven't gotten into the management of it. They put so much focus in on the creation of it, the materialization of it, the getting of it, that they never focused on the having it, the maintaining it, the growing it, right? The maintenance of it. So you have to understand that when we talk about matching a frequency, we're talking about matching a vibration, right? Whether it be when it comes to money, right? That's the easiest understanding of it. Whether it comes to love, whether it comes to, of course, health. If you don't get into how, all right, in the different ways of managing these materializations, right, these manifestations, then you may get it and then not have it anymore. Or it could just simply fall through the cracks. For example, money. Money is something that we always get, right? You have a job, you have access to money. The question is, what do you do? What do you do with money once you get it? Okay. Management of money. Same thing. Love. We've all been in relationships, right? Some of us, many relationships. Well, the thing with relationships and love, there is a component that is kind of outside of your hands, right? When it comes to the other individual that you're in a relationship with. So you have to take that into account and you have to recognize, well, I'm not the only one that's in charge of this situation. This is an agreement. This is a relationship. But what you do have the ability to do is from relationship to relationship, you have the ability to assess and to recognize and to see yourself in those relationships. Because essentially, those relationships are reflections of you. And so the question is, again, what do you do? Right? What do you do with the relationship? What do you do with the love? Do you take it and be very possessive over it? Are you somebody who's jealous? Are you somebody who is envious, right, of your partner? Meaning maybe they make more money than you. Maybe they're more aligned than you. Maybe they have ability to attract and create more friends and meaningful relationships and bonds and activities. And they just more involved in life than you are. Are you envious about that? You love them, right? But does all of the insecurities and the doubts and the false limiting beliefs cause you to essentially resist actually loving them, to resist actually being that for them? Okay. Be mindful about that. What do your relationships look like? How are you showing up in those relationships? That's the key. When you look at how you're showing up in those relationships, then that's when relationships begin to advance as far as frequency and experience. You may ask yourself, well, why do I keep getting in relationships with this kind of person? Or why does my relationships always happen and end in this way? It is because you haven't taken and received the lesson and the opportunity from that past relationship. You have just gone from one relationship to another without taking ownership of what it is you were to gain in that relationship and taking ownership of changing and transformation of the self. Then that will increase your frequency, right? You evolve yourself to a different self, a higher level of self, and then you will attract somebody else with a higher frequency, thus create a higher level relationship, all right? Love, health. You have a physical body. So again, what are you doing, right? What are you doing with that health? What are you doing with your body? Okay. What are you feeding it? What activities are you doing? Even if you don't consider yourself to be healthy, you still have a physical body, meaning that there is still an opportunity for you to advance, to grow, to optimize that physical body, especially from the place that you're in right now. There's always a way to get better. Okay. Now, I don't talk about this often, but I thought about it today in terms of wellness, like your mental state. Okay. Some people couldn't care less about these three things, or they have it all. They have all these three things, right? But something's going on within their mind. Something's going on within their spirit. Okay. So you have to then go into a deep understanding of spirituality, right? That's essentially what we're talking about here. Is really getting into oneness with yourself, bringing harmony to yourself. That's simply just practicing things like awareness, practicing things like compassion, understanding, right? Love. You see? Now, the great thing is for people who have these things, can be a little bit easier. Okay. You have people who have these things and they really struggle here. Then you have people who don't care about these things, and they over-index when it comes to wellness and spirituality because they're not attached to any of this stuff, right? But then the point of life, I think, is to captivate and take ownership of all of it. We're not supposed to live life, right? And then just say, oh, I only can pick one, so I'm going to do this one. Or I only can pick one, or I can only have two, so I'm going to pick these two. No, you can have it all, right? This is what the future self frequency is about that I share with you in the book. There is a version of you that has all of these things. Why? Because there is a version of you that is whole and complete in all things, whole and complete in who you know yourself to be. You see? So you have to practice really getting into the mindset of recognizing and seeing yourself as the version of you that has it all. So management is very important in this. You have to essentially, you can start with the management of simply visualizing and imagining yourself having all of these four things and so much more. I mean, there are things on this list that I won't be able to comprehend or fathom because it's your journey. So you may have something else that you may say, yeah, this thing means so much more to me than these four major topics. These are just major topics. I mean, you can also have branches from each one of them. So it's important to learn how to see your future self, okay, and begin what I like to say embodying the future self, which is really what we're talking about here is the management of having the thing. Just imagine yourself, if you're a parent, imagine, your child. Well, I don't even need to say imagine. We know it, right? You have a child. Your child asks you for certain things. Holidays, birthdays, what have you. They ask for this particular thing, toy, whatever. You buy it for them. Then you notice how they are treating it. When you recognize that they're not treating what you already gave to them, right, with love, appreciation, right, with respect, then it causes you to be very hesitant the next time they ask for something else. It causes you to basically not want to give them the best of whatever it is that they're asking for, because you have seen how they show up in that moment, how they show up or how they deal with, treat things, how they actually appreciate, right? The degree by which they appreciate that thing that you've already given them. So if there is no appreciation for the money that you already have, meaning you're not managing it well, if there is no appreciation for the love of the relationships that you have, meaning that you are not really living in presence with those people, you're not being vulnerable, you're not being compassionate. If there is no management of your health, meaning your body, and you're not taking care of it, you're just eating all the crap, you're not being active, you're not exercising, right? Then why are we wanting or hoping or imagining something other than the thing that we have, but still not appreciating? Wellness, we have a mind, we have the ability, okay, to process information. If we're not taking care of all of these things, then how can we expect the universe, even your higher self, to actually give you more of these things? You're not lining up with the creation. You're not lining up with the idea of it. You're not lining up with it. So it doesn't make sense for you to get it. Simply put, right? You wouldn't give that. You wouldn't give somebody money, right? If you see somebody homeless on the street, you wouldn't give them money if you know they're going to do something very unproductive, meaningless, or, something that's going to harm them, right? Now, when it comes to giving money to the homeless or people who are less fortunate than I am, I really don't care what they do with the money. I just want to give it to them. They have the right to do what they want with it. But you understand the reference point as to what I was saying here. So you have to really get into recognizing the importance of you, right? And your ability to manage things. So we're going to get into really thinking about ways on how you can really set yourself up to win when it comes to this idea of aligning with your future self. Okay. You want to think in terms of let's write it all down. Let's have a list, right? And we want to make a list, right? Of a list for management. Okay. A list for embodiment. Okay. So we're talking about your future self. We are imagining we can do more than just visualize. Like when we look at people on social media, we see a picture. Doesn't give us much information besides the picture. But when we get into imagining, visualizing your future self, you get more than just a picture, right? You get a feeling. You get a sense of being there in that moment for that second or few seconds. So you get a lot of information. Okay. You get a glimpse of that version of you. And so with that glimpse, you gain to get information. You get the ability of like recognizing, oh, this is probably how I did it. Okay. So we're going to think about, let's say, right, your future self. So let's get into like schedules, right? How would you schedule certain things as your future self? What does your calendar look like? What does your day look like? See, very important. We're going to get into budgets. If you're talking about money, especially, right? What does that look like? How do we allocate our money? How do we direct it? How do we manage it? What are we doing with the money? Okay. Budgets can also relate to investments, right? What are we doing with that money long term? You can just be the person that focuses on creating the money right now. You know, I used to be that person. I get it because you're like, well, I can't think about investments if I'm not making any money right now. Right. So even budgets, some people say, I can't think about a budget because I don't even have money to budget. But see, again, here's the thing. If you set yourself up to even think and consider, hey, if, okay, and this is what we're talking about. We're talking about aligning with that version of you as if you have it already. So if you had certain amounts of money, okay, how would you budget it? If you were able to invest, how would you invest it? Okay. Because what is that saying? It's saying that when it happens, you're ready. This is what we're talking about. Being ready is matching the frequency. And so when you are ready, that means that you're matching the frequency. You have the mindset, you have the education, you have the point of view. The reality has been created, okay, in your mind, in your subconscious, especially. Therefore, you are telling yourself and you're telling the universe, hey, I know what to do. This is what I do. And so therefore the universe says, recognizes and says, okay, great, perfect. You are ready. Here it is. Here's the breakthrough, right? So same thing when we think about, let's see, the body, right? Health. So what are you doing? Like, what are you doing with the body? So I should really put, let's see, food, activity. What is that future self eating? What is that future self doing? That's where you want to be. You want to just look at these things, get a glimpse, okay? And then you want to implement as many of these things as possible in the moment. Doesn't have to be an extreme change of everything all at once because that might be too much for you right now, right? So you want to just get into just simply writing these things down, making a list and saying, what does your day look like? Okay. What does a typical day for you look like as your future self? All right. Are you waking up early in the morning? You going to the gym? You got a trainer? Whatever it is. And this is like ideal. What does your perfect life look like? Okay. Because that exists. That's what I want you to understand. That exists. All right. Now, this is a big one. Nurturing your relationship. Okay. We're talking love relationships, exclusive relationships. We're talking friendships. Nurturing that relationship. What does that look like? Okay. So in this list that you are going to make, you're going to write down what exactly all the things your future self is doing, or that you can fathom or understand or think your future self is doing. Okay. And then you are going to take some of these things that you can implement in your life right now and begin simply doing it slowly, bit by bit, not focused on how long it's going to take, not focused on when everything is going to materialize. Just simply focus on being that already. Okay. And if in order to be that already, you got to start embodying, you got to start implementing, you have to start managing the abundance that you already have available to you. You already have to manage the abundance that you have access to. Okay. Because then when you recognize all the abundance you have access to already, then that opens up the door more for you to access more. And in fact, it almost seems as if the door, when it opens and you're able to access more, it doesn't seem that different to you because you've already embodied the mindset, the persona, the version of you. Okay. And therefore, it's just simply a matter of just like now, when you walk through a door, it's no big deal. Okay. But you're actually changing planes, right? You're going from one state, one room to another state, another room. But because you have already matched the frequency of the state, the room you're going into, when you go into it, it's not a big deal because you're already that. Okay. Very important stuff to recognize here. Embodiment is the key to it all. Management is the key to it all. So you have to really get proactive about all of this. Okay. Now, what's important is when I talk about how, right, to get this list, you have to go, you have to start with imagination. Okay. Very important. You have to get into the imagination of the identity. Okay. The identity of that future self. You see, when you get into the identity of that future self, then you get into the management of that identity, of all the things that you desire. So we can just say the management actions. Okay. And that ultimately gives you the results that you would desire. So imagination gives you a clear understanding to the identity of your future self. Then from there, you basically distill and come up with understandings of management actions of that identity. Okay. And that will create ultimately the results that you desire, meaning manifestation of your desires, your dreams, your aspirations, whatever the case is. Okay. So what I want you to do is just simply make a list. Okay. And we're going to just really call that like we're going to call it your future self manager. Okay. And the future self manager is really going to be your checklist for one day, for every day. Okay. And you're going to review all the things that you want, that's important to you, that you really want to get focused and dialed in on, like your money. You're going to just say, okay, this is because some people don't really like to take a moment now and look at their money and their financial situation because they just know it sucks. And I get it. That's fair, right? It's just like going back and looking at the past and trying to heal past wounds, right? With shadow work. And though I think that's important, right? I think that is definitely useful to look at your current situation, to look at past experiences and trauma and heal from them. But is it necessary? No, because we can just simply get into what it is that we desire, the reality that exists already, the version of us that has it already set up. So you can still gain because it's skillful to say, okay, now I'm gonna sit down and look at my finances and then figure it out, right? You develop the same skills by creating the embodiment practices of what your future self actually has. Okay. You can do the same thing, but as your future self is what I'm saying. So you can look at your future self's finances, but then break down, okay, what is my budget? Right? What, what investments? Okay. What assets do I have? You can decide how to allocate different things, and bring your attention to different investments. So it's about really recognizing that this journey here is about basically aligning, with the future self and being that now. So instead of focusing on the income of this current experience, right? And I'm reluctant to say that for various reasons, but you hear what I'm saying. You want to bring this idea, this version of you that we identify as future, right? But really isn't. We want to bring that here in the moment with all the things that we desire, already achieved, already fulfilled. And then we want to then go through and create the budget. Then we go through and assess the relationship. Then we go through and assess our health, right? And then we just simply do those things. Now, this is where you begin to merge past self with future self, because I should say present self, right? Let's see, the P's for present, the F's for future. Where we merge present self with future self is, though we have this long list of things that the future self consistently does and always does, we have to visualize, see those things, but then we're going to implement a few of those things at this moment. Okay. And eventually that'll become you, right? Because it is you. And then we'll implement a few more things, and then a few more things, and then a few more things until you're no longer thinking about the previous things. They just come natural to you. Okay. So the takeaway is, make a list. You can even pick one area in your life that's important to you: money, health, love, and just create this future self manager, this list. All right. And then that will just simply help you to just take true ownership over what's already yours. That's all I'm saying. You're taking ownership over what is already yours. So let me know if you have any questions, and I look forward to sharing with you soon, very soon. And if you follow me, you know how soon. So feel free, go to futureselffrequency.com, pick up the book and the journal. And till next time, peace and abundance always.